The 14.16 Senna changes have gutted lethality builds, and it brought forth this new enchanter setup that's performing incredibly well that we'll be covering in today's video. What do you guys think of this approach by Riot? Are you gonna miss being more of a damage threat when playing Senna, or do you like the fact she's more utility based now? Let us know in the comments below. And are you sick of losing games from bad teammates? Well, at SkillCapped, we turn your frustrating losses into satisfying wins. Take our brand new Season 14 courses that teach you the secrets to winning as top laner, jungler, mid laner, AD carry, and support. Then pair that with our other new courses on how to counter OP top and mid laners, master your jungle clears, or check out our new Bronze to Diamond series. We even have new Season 14 courses on macro, wave control, trading, settings and hotkeys, CSing, vision, mechanics, low elo mistakes, and the list goes on. Then head over to our Smurf commentaries. Simply select the champion you want to master and get guides from challenger experts teaching how to play your champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. You're even guaranteed to have all your questions answered by that very same challenger expert. Our service really does work. That's why we offer a rank up guarantee. If you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below right now to get the rank you've always dreamed of. If we dive right into the top lane tier list, the role was very minimally impacted by the 14.16 changes, so all we're doing is cleaning it up a bit for this patch. Nasus and Mordekaiser are being moved up into the top lane S tier, as both champs have been on the verge of S for a while now and are continuing to perform very well for solo queue, so we're giving them the bump. We're going to be bumping Volley down into S tier for this patch, as Set is just pulling away as the more consistently powerful champion across all elo brackets. So far, it doesn't look like the changes to death timers and death home guards have made a significant impact, at least for solo queue. Black Cleaver buffs have also been extremely disappointing, as they have not led to a significant boost in strength for many champs that we originally thought would benefit. It does look like Yorick is one champ that has been seeing more success with the Cleaver rush this patch. We covered this setup in our OP builds video a few patches ago, and is Black Cleaver with Shojin and Liandry's as the core. Build is performing very well this patch, and Yorick is looking like one of the better S tier champs, especially for low elo. It's still a bit too early to tell for sure, but it's looking like the changes to Blade of the Ruined King have been positive for top lane Aurelia, but negative for mid. The percent health damage on Blade of the Ruined King was buffed, while the AD and attack speed of the item went down. More percent health damage is going to help out top lane Aurelia a bit more than mid, since you're playing against tanks or bruisers that like to stack health. So Aurelia is getting a bump up the top lane tier list for mid patch, going from B to A tier. Champions that can abuse Liandry's are really pulling away as the biggest winners in the jungle right now, and Nunu is one of them. This hybrid setup going around on Nunu is providing him with an incredible amount of strength right now, as you rush Liandry's, go Deadman second, and then Abyssal Mask third. You can even go for a more offensive build with Rocket Belt as the rush that has gotten a lot stronger as of recent due to the Rocket Belt buffs from last patch. Overall, some great versatility for Nunu builds right now, as you can adapt to what your team needs extremely well. Nunu was also positively impacted by the recent buffs to Dark Harvest, as the rune has been performing better than Phase Rush as of recent. So Nunu is without question one of the more underrated solo queue junglers for this patch, and is being moved into the S tier. One jungler who's getting moved down the tier list for mid patch is going to be Viego. Champ has been underperforming a lot more ever since the Kraken nerf that went live in patch 14.15. Still a good solo queue pickup, but we're going to be adjusting him from S into A tier. Very much like Nunu, Amumu is another jungler who has been loving the Liandry's rush as of late and is outperforming so many junglers as a result. Riot did have Liandry's nerfs initially planned for this patch, but then they decided to scrap them, so we wouldn't be surprised if they are back on the menu for 14.17. It's just such a great solo queue build because you deal some really nice damage while being super tanky and providing a ton of CC. So Amumu is getting a bump up into the OP tier for mid patch, but we wouldn't be surprised if he drops right back down for next patch if Liandry's does get nerfed. So here's how we got the jungle tier list constructed for 14.16, as the OP tier is going to be locked down by Lilia, Shyvana, and Amumu. All three champs get to abuse Liandry's right now, and are all exceptionally strong teamfight champs. Skarner, Vi, and Wukong were the three junglers who got directly buffed for this patch, and their changes have all played out as expected. Vi buffs did not do quite enough to warrant a push up the tier list, so she remains in the B tier. It's so hard to tell exactly how impactful the Skarner changes have actually been because of how little he's still being played in solo queue. Win rate has gone up a few percentage points, but with his play rate so low, you can't really look into that too much due to the low sample size. Skarner is definitely no longer the worst jungler in the game, but he's nothing special either, as we'll be leaving him in the B tier for now. As for Wukong, his buffs were definitely the most impactful of the three. Attack speed going up not only helps with Wu's dueling strength, but it boosts his clear speed as well, which is really nice. Passive armor buff also helps out with Wukong's clear to keep him healthier and gives him a better skirmish as well. We've had Wukong rated as one of the bottom percentile junglers for a while now, but we see a push up into A tier fitting with how much better he's been performing this patch. The big winner coming out of the mid lane for this patch has been Sylas. Riot ended up over-nerfing Sylas last patch, and now for 14.16, it looks like they may have over-buffed him. As more players adapt to the most optimal build for Sylas, his analytical showing could improve even more. In high elos, we're seeing Rocket Belt Rush become much more popular, and players running the item are winning more than those going Lich Bane. It's Rocket Belt into Cosmic Drive for the 2-item core, and both items were just buffed last patch. The big pro to this build is that you're way more durable than going Lich into Shadow Flame. More margin for error, which is great for the average player who may not have the most polished micro on the champ. You also grab Conqueror for the Keystone Rune when running this build, as you're looking to be more of a consistent damage threat than a super bursty champ. Katarina changes were definitely the ones that surprised us the most, as we didn't think she'd gain much strength from the adjustments. This was mainly based off the assumption that players would continue to build Blade of the Ruined King though, which has become significantly weaker. Blade Rush was played in over 40% of games last patch, but it's now dropped all the way down to 15% in 14.16, so Katarina players have been quick to adapt. AP Cat is back as Lich Bane, Rush is looking super strong, and it's heavily outperforming Blade and Nashers. Q base damage and AP ratio were buffed, while the on-hit damage from Cat R was nerfed, which has led to this shift. So you're going for a much more bursty one-shot version of Katarina moving forward, with Lich Bane into Shadow Flame being the 2-item core. Of course, it's also going to be Electrocute for the Keystone Rune in place of Conqueror to really bolster that one-shot strength. So if we move on to the mid lane tier list now, OP tier is going to stay the same as how it's been for a while with Vex and Naafiri, with both Cat and Sylas moving up in priority for this patch, while LeBlanc, Yasuo, and Yone are being played at very high rates. Vex is just loving this meta. When covering top lane, we mentioned that Irelia has seemed to gain power due to Blade of the Ruined King changes, but for mid lane, it looks like she's lost strength. You don't get as much value from the percent health damage buff when playing Irelia mid, since most mid lane champs don't stack health. Losing some health and lifesteal from Doran's Blade is also detrimental to the early game snowball power of Irelia, as you're a little more vulnerable. The Azir, Syndra, and Orianna buffs have been about as underwhelming as expected, so we have no additional movement for them on the mid-patch tier list. It was the Blade of the Ruined King nerfs that had the most impact on the ADC meta for this patch, and Vayne is going to be moved down as a result. Blade of the Ruined King is really the only viable rush item for Vayne, even after the item being nerfed, so she's just in a much weaker spot right now. From A to B tier is where we'll be moving Vayne on the tier list. The ADC meta is going to remain very similar to where it was last patch, with a few minor adjustments. With the way all the changes have played out over the past couple of patches, Jhin is really pulling through as one of the most optimal solo queue ADCs, and he's taking up the only OP tier spot. Jinx and Kai'Sa are being adjusted down into A tier for this patch, as the recent nerfs to Shiv and Kraken are proving to have reduced each champ's power level enough to warrant a move out of S. Lucian adjustments are looking to be pretty neutral so far for bot lane. Our initial thinking was that the Q nerfs would outweigh the passive buff, but that has not been the case so far. As a result, we're going to be adjusting Lucian back up into the A tier for mid patch. Even with the nerfs to Doran's Blade this patch, it is still looking like the item has remained the most optimal starting item. Nerf hasn't been harsh enough to warrant a longsword start meta to make a comeback, so continue prioritizing Doran's Blade for 14.16. So the big talking point of the entire patch has been the complete shift of how Senna will be played from here on out. Not only has the meta build changed for Senna, but she's also seen a huge spike in power as well. Lethality is now out, while Enchanter builds are in. It's still early, so who knows if this exact build will end up most optimal, but the setup that has been working the best so far consists of running Dreammaker for the item upgrade, with Echoes of Helia and Moonstone as core items. AP ratio of Senna's Q, heal, and R shield were both buffed heavily for this patch, which is a big reason to why this build has a lot more strength. She's definitely now more of a heal bot, spamming out Qs as frequently as possible in fights. This also means that the skill required to actually play Senna at a competitive level has been reduced. You really don't need to be weaving in autos as consistently to find success with this new Senna, so she's much more noob friendly. The rune page has completely changed as well with this new version of Senna, as you should be dropping Fleet Footwork and grabbing Aerie instead. So for Senna's tier list placement, we had moved her up into A tier during the pre-patch tier list, but seeing how the adjustments have turned out after hitting live servers, it's safe to say she's in need of a further push up, and we're moving her all the way into OP for mid-patch. So Senna moving into OP is really the only big shift in the support tier list for 14.16. OP tier is now going to consist of Poppy, Seraphine, and Senna, as we have moved Nami down into S due to Senna moving up. First time in a while for solo queue to where we actually have enchanters on top of the meta. For the longest time, it was the Warmog's Rush melee supports that were crushing everyone, but that's no longer the case. Melee supports like Leona and Poppy are still really good, but they are no longer miles ahead of everyone else in strength. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it guys, a quick and condensed look at the solo queue tier list for every single role as we reach the midway point of 14.16. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.